we'll be talking about TensorFlow in practice, from certification to real-world applications. Bad, you did a bit of introduction about me, but I'll just tell you a bit about myself. Currently, I'm the VP of Data Science at ChangeBlock. We're a climate financing company. I have my background in NLP and research at Rewire. I've worked in EdTech, FinTech, PropTech, and Climate Tech. I founded the company called Redly, which we are building a children's reading app for children in the UK. And we've got a pre-seed funding. We're in the next round of funding. Hopefully, we should get that soon. I've written a book on TensorFlow, which is why I'm doing this talk. And I think it's good for a lot of young AI entrepreneurs and enthusiasts. I'm writing the second book right now on PyTorch with Orange Education. I do a bit of mentorship as well on Mentor Cruise, though that has been a bit slow these days because I've not really had much time. I've been a panel member on a couple of hackathons. We have an hackathon running as well right now with an NGO that I work closely with. So that's just a bit about myself in a nutshell. I also help with companies to onboard tech enthusiasts and entry-level and senior AI engineers as well. So to jump in quickly, because what I will try to do is we'll use the first 30 minutes. We've used about 15 to just run through my slides. Then we'll keep some minutes for questions, because I think interactive exchanges are really very strong and helpful for many of these kind of sessions. So for those who don't know, TensorFlow, it was developed by Google and in 2011, and it became open source in 2015. It's not just to help you to build models, but it also helps you to go end-to-end in the whole deep learning cycle. When you're building applications with TensorFlow, you're able to build, evaluate, deploy with TensorFlow. And that's one of the strong points of it. Now, the next slide, we look at some of the key features of TensorFlow. It's very flexible, and its modularity. So it's easy for you to use some of the features independently, and as well you can combine them together with other features in the TensorFlow ecosystem, or you could use them with other libraries that are available for ML engineers. Then you have a very strong community. You're able to, for example, if you get stuck, the community is very large, and you probably find answers even before ChatGPT came now to help a lot of us to ask questions and get answers. You get a lot of help from a lot of users who are always on the community to provide support, and there's always updates, there's always improvements on the libraries to make sure that it's able to serve everyday use cases. So you'll find very few cases where you probably won't find help in terms of in the community when you ask questions or you search through some of the questions that have been asked in the past. Again, it's very scalable. You can use on CPU, GPU, TPUs. So it allows you to be able to build very large scale applications, which we will talk about in the later stages of this presentation. And you have high level APIs like the Keras APIs, which you can use to build and train very complex models, And the beauty of it is many times you could do this you could build very powerful applications with just a few lines of code, because TensorFlow is kind of built in that, build, fit, and deploy method. So it's very easy to be able to build models quickly with TensorFlow. So that's one advantage you would have. Now, many times in the data community, we always talk about certifications and why you shouldn't bother about them, really. I used to be one of the people that will tell you certifications are not important, and not necessarily because it's a bad thing, but because no one would really bother so much in the past, and even up till now, sometimes people do not bother. But the difference with these particular certification is, one, it's a hands-on exam. You must know how to build models to be able to pass the exam. There's no theory, there's no multi-choice questions. No one is asking you questions. It's not an interview. You're going to actually have to build models within that 5 hours period. So why is this really important? First things first is it gives you professional recognition. You're able to validate yourself as an expert with TensorFlow, to recruiters, even to the ML community. Then again, of course, when you have your badge of recognition from TensorFlow, it verifies your skill that you are able to do this. So sometimes, like in the past, when recruiters ask me, when I was trying to get a job, my first job in the UK, they ask you, do you know how to use either TensorFlow or PyTorch? And I tell them I have my certification, which is based on a 5 hours practical exam. That sorts it out, and it just removes that question. It's off the table. Then if you decide, for example, maybe perhaps we want to go into this, take the exam, for example, you would have to, like I said before, you have to prepare, you have to know how to build models across 4 key fields in the Tensorflow certification exam. You have to be able to, you have to understand the core fundamentals of machine learning. You must be able to build models for image classification, natural language processing, and time series. And the good part of this exam is this: many of the solutions you would build in this certification track, they're very useful. Even in some of the works I've done personally, they're like, of course, I call them lightweight questions, but it's just a building block upon which you're able to scale out your solution. So it's not a bad thing to be able to, once you know how to do this, really, you're making life easier for your senior AI engineers or ML engineers in a company you're going to, especially when you're just starting out, because they already have a sense that you know what you're doing, and they just need to teach you or to help you scale better and get stronger in what you're doing. And that's one of the beauty of this. The exam takes place in PyCharm, so you would need to practice in PyCharm, because sometimes one of the issues I found out with people who are really prepared, in some cases you spend a lot of time preparing in Colab, or Google Colab, because you have the free GPU, and when the exam comes you have to do it in PyCharm. Then they begin to struggle because they are not prepared to use the particular environment where the exam will take place, and that's where the issue lies. Because if you do not submit your answers, your solutions in PyCharm, you really get no marks. If you get no marks, you fail the exam. Again, we jump into the benefits, job prospects. I think the most critical reason why people take certifications is to be able to open more doors for themselves. You opening more doors for yourself, either by getting a new job, or perhaps you want your employer to see that you're now better, or you're really certified in what you're doing, and perhaps it might lead to a pay rise. That's another reason why people do it. Again, you might want to many people struggle with imposter syndrome, so you might want to at least validate to yourself, maybe you want to be more credible to the society, that look, I'm good at what I say I do, and this is my certificate to show that I'm able to do it. Another key part that maybe perhaps a lot of people fail to understand is the networking opportunities that it avails us. For example, when you become a member of this TensorFlow developers community, which is by virtue of you passing the exam, you find out that this is a practical experience of mine. You find out that a lot more recruiters reach out to you because of this. They check within the network of some of these AI leaders, Andrew Ng, Lawrence Moroney, Pablo Moreno, and all the other guys who are already out there. They check within their network who is looking for a job, and it's easy for them to find you. Sometimes they even ask directly. And if you're really very active, like myself, when I finished this exam, I was also a mentor on deep learning AI. So it puts you out there, and it makes people recognize you as someone who is a formidable force, or is going to become a formidable force in your field. And again, when is it a better time to join the AI market than now? Even these statistics, I think I got put up here. I think the numbers have changed now, because it's going to surpass $2 trillion by 2030. That I can tell you, because of the explosion of large language models now, and everyone is trying to do AI this or AI that. And if we achieve AGI, then it's even going to be much more valuable than that, especially if you follow up with some of the works that have been done by companies like OpenAI and Meta now, where Mark Zuckerberg is trying to also achieve AGI and make it open source. So that makes it more exciting for all of us. Now, if you want to take the exam and you're an absolute beginner, the ideal time recommended is 6 months. 6 months allows you to be able to effectively prepare from zero to get ready for the exams, covering all the key components of the exams. But it varies for people. Our levels of understanding, not because you're not smart, but a new idea or a new concept might be difficult for you depending on the background you're coming from. If you're not coming from, maybe perhaps you have zero idea of how to maybe write code in Python, or you have no idea of even, things like some of the basic mathematical concepts that drive some of these models and these algorithms. It might be a bit more complex, for you initially, but it doesn't mean that you cannot embark on a career to become a TensorFlow developer or a machine learning engineer or a data scientist. What it just means is that you probably would need to give it more time, and so the main thing is, for your exam, you would know when you're ready, because you probably have covered the entire curriculum end to end, which is available on the TensorFlow website, and you can as well find a breakdown in my book. Now, I always prefer a personalized approach where you plan yourself, you map it out, you break it down, week by week. I always believe in that 1%. Do something every day so that you can have that compound effect rather than what a lot of people do. You have this big plan of finishing it in 3 weeks, and you get tired after day two. Then you see one of your friends in your network becomes certified, and you begin to study so hard again the next 3 days. Then you give up again. It's always good to have a well-structured plan that you can keep up with and hold yourself accountable. I think that's some of the things I think Zoom It Africa is trying to do to be able to help you guys as well pass the exams. And I think Pablo also has some amazing ideas around getting a lot of people to be able to pass these exams as well, because it's easy when you know it, but if you don't, then it's difficult. So for the exam day strategies, I think some of the things you might want to know, for example, you would definitely have to familiarize yourself with PyCharm, and you need to have like a clear study routine. Coding assistants are not allowed. So if you had that in mind, then sorry, they're not allowed in the exams. You have to learn how to code, and you have to learn how to manage your time properly. You must learn how to build the models, understand every single line of code. So it's not about copy and pasting alone. I always advise you write your code out. It's good to look at stuff online, because really and truly, when you begin to work, you always find ideas online, but you also have to learn how to write your code, because when you know how to write your code, if an issue happens, then you know exactly where to pinpoint. I usually advise when you're starting, let the code fail, break it down, write so that you make mistakes and you would never forget. It's always the best way to go about it. Well, when you take the exams and you pass, you become part of the Tensorflow community. As I said, this is my own certificate, and you can see me there among some of the other Tensorflow developers. Then beyond the exams, really, you could apply this in many fields. I just listed out 4 here because I just thought about what 4 would be interesting to me, not necessarily to you. So you can think about, like, you could build the beauty of ML. And one of the reasons why I got myself into this space is the fact that I get bored working in a particular sector for so long, and if you really want to be able to work across different fields, then you need to have, either you're in data science, ML, or be a data analyst. Those kind of roles gives you that power to be able to like move from one industry to another. Like, I've worked across projects that have no relation to the next project and no relation to the next one. So that's the kind of feel I like, because it doesn't keep you bored. You're not doing the same thing for like 10 years. Yes, you're building as an ML engineer, but you're working on a different kind of problem set. For example, one of the interesting problems I worked on in the past was, building a hate and abuse detection system with Rewire, where we tried to build a state-of-the-art hate and abuse detection system, which surpassed Google and Meta at that time. And that's something that myself and the team of researchers at Rewire really took pride in at that time. We also had to, because of that, as much as the team at Google and Facebook refused to use our solution because we wanted them to integrate it. We got at least a contract to help them to improve their models, and it was a good pay for the company at that time. And that company has now, I think they've been acquired now, so which was good for the founders as well. So you could build solutions in image recognition, for example, medical imaging. You're able to look at X-ray images. I think we did a case study of X-ray. I think cancer classification with X-ray, which you might find a lot of that online as well. You can also do photo tagging, predictive analytics, IoT and smart cities, gaming and entertainment. I know a lot of data enthusiasts these days, they spend quite some time on gaming. Maybe for some of the older generation, it might not be an appeal, but I think the younger generation, because you spend a lot of time on the computer, you might as well spend some time maybe in gaming. So you have some of these opportunities. And what is even more powerful to me as a person, I think, is the ability to be able to build anything you really want to think about now. That's, I think, one of the biggest powers you have as an ML or AI engineer. You could just think about a problem. And what I usually advise people is look around you. Not necessarily you don't think global, but look around you and see what problem can I start to solve from where I am with the technologies that are available to me today. Because if you look at 10 or 20 years back, you would sympathize with many of the data scientists and ML engineers at that time because of the complexities. Even 5 years ago, or about 5-7 years ago, it wasn't as rosy as now. And in the next 5 years, it will probably be much more easier than now. So you have access to GPUs that probably before were just available to IBM, Google, and a couple of the big tech companies. So you have access to some of those GPUs. You could build a lot of things right on your computer in the cloud and deploy a lot of solutions. So I've seen people building things, a lot of university students here building solutions and raising money to build, big, fantastic products to solve everyday problems. So you must try to first localize your solution and build some good ML solutions. And I think, for example, if you want to look for a job, I just divert a bit. I tell people you don't need to build 20 projects or you don't need to recycle projects. Just look for one or two problems to solve and really have like a detailed solution. And it's a good way to start to show people what you can do. And that's one thing I always advise. Now, when it comes to transitioning from learning all the theoretical concepts, if you perhaps have studied maybe a boot camp, they teach you everything, you just sit back and you watch. But the truth is, until you build, you really don't know much. And that's what I tell people. Until you really practicalize what you've learned theoretically, you're not yet there. So one of the things I usually suggest is you should apply more the practical-based approach where you learn some theory and you build what you've learned. Try to build, because when you build, you remember. Think about project-based learning. You build solutions across the different topics you've covered. Where can you apply this? How can you apply it? I rather prefer you build out a solution that even it doesn't work and you learn why it didn't work than for you to just read 20 textbooks of theory or watch 20 Udemy videos or Coursera videos and all the others. Then again, you can also try to collaborative learning where you guys tackle a project. You can say, guys, maybe you have 4 or 5 of your friends who are also studying with you. Why don't we build something different from what you find in some of those projects on Kaggle and all the others? You can try something. It doesn't have to be completely 100% different, but you could look at it from a different perspective, because ML is all about trade-offs. There's always something you sacrifice, just like life. There's always going to be something that has to give, but you can look at the problem from a different perspective. And I'll tell you why. For example, during my master's project, I was given a project with I did an industry-based project with Argos, one of the big superstores. They've been acquired now by Sainsbury. But they gave me a case study, and when they gave me my case study, they were very generous. They gave me an approach. They outlined an approach that the team thought was a good way to solve the problem, which wasn't a bad idea. But I looked at the problem and I found a better way to solve the problem. Guess what? They would have hired me on the spot, but I already had a job by the time I finished my university, because I had like series of offers on the table. So that's the kind of way I like people to think. You must be able to think beyond just what you're told. I'm not saying you should disobey others. I'm just saying one of the hallmark of you being a great person or a great engineer or a developer is the ability to be able to convert what you've learned theoretically to practical applications, to build cutting-edge solutions. That's where I think you need to apply. You can find so many people who are good at coding, solving what they call them, hacker rank and all that. They can do them. They're very good at it. But how do you translate all that into really building solutions that work, solutions that solve real problems, and you can translate that to ROIs, because business is about value and about either making monies or cutting down cost or optimizing processes. So you must learn that. Again, this is where this topic is good, because you already have some ideas, even on the Tensorflow website, in my book, on their courses. You can build projects in image recognition where you might end up becoming maybe a computer vision engineer. You can also work on NLP project, natural language processing projects, where you might end up becoming an NLP engineer and build some amazing solutions as well. Maybe go into using LLMs and all that as well. You could go into the finance sector, which is something that Pablo is an expert in as well, where you can build financial forecasting models. You can do predictive analytics for social good. Some of the solutions we built were used to flag and then detect online hate and abuse, which is very, it makes me happy when I see some of the works we've done out there, So that's a bit rewarding as well. Again, some of the challenges you might find, common pitfalls you find in ML. These are some things you will find in the books, things around overfitting, underfitting, scaling your solution, because you building a solution in your Colab notebook, because again, you find a large community of people who come into this space without much computer science background. So they just build out and they never really think about scaling. Then again, you have issues about concept drift and data drift. This has to do with when you deploy your solutions, because the show doesn't end there. You still have to monitor these these models to ensure that they're doing what they're doing, and the overall underlying idea in which you used to build the model still holds true. It's important that holds true. Then again, the best practices in TensorFlow, like in ML and the whole ML space, is you have to have an iterative approach. You have to evaluate your model, document, and ensure your code is readable. Because sometimes when you go into practical into companies, you find out that they don't have a good culture where people just build out and no one else can understand what they've done. You must build in a way that your code is well documented. I'm not saying commenting in your code notebook. I'm saying you document the entire process correctly, beyond just commenting in your notebook, and ensure that it's readable and understandable. Don't just write code for writing's sake. You must write optimal code. You must learn how to do things in the correct way. It's okay to hack out something quickly, but it's important to ensure that you're building optimally. And that's one thing that I used to always emphasize. Then you must also have ethical considerations. You must never, take advantage of people's data without express authorization. And it must be done in the correct way. You shouldn't just go, because you can scrape a website does not give you the authority to go on someone's website and start scraping it, especially when they tell you expressly not to scrape their website, even if you have the ability. So you must play by the rules, and that's one thing we emphasize. And I think in Europe, there's a lot of strong regulation against abuse and misuse of data, and your company can be heavily fined for that as well. So I think I've run through everything quickly, so it's you guys' turn to ask me questions. If there's any particular point you want me to expand on, or something you want to ask, maybe that's bothered you before, please, this is the time to ask me. So I'll stop sharing and let you guys ask me questions if you do have, or maybe you want to tell me a joke as well. So I'm happy to take any of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Wally, sir, for the in-depth talk, and you actually spoke on a lot of things that touched me, because I've always found, like, for me, it's always the multitude of work involved. I'm a very pragmatic person, because I'm also a writer. So when you said, oh, you had this stuff for your writing, I was like, okay. So I'm a very pragmatic person. I don't like to overestimate. I don't like to underestimate. And I did a bit of my research, especially with regards to this, because this is where I want to do my academic and professional career in, hopefully to PhD level. So you said something that about the TensorFlow exam, and you stated something. So I wanted to ask, the being adept at using the PyCharm environment, aside for the TensorFlow exam, is it also necessary for professional efficiency? Because you said something about the Google Colab being most used by beginners before they write the exam. Then when they write the exam, they find issues or they are challenged when integrating with the PyCharm. So I wanted to know, is it that the PyCharm is the more professionally used, or it's just because of the exam?
Yeah, I think that's a good question you've asked. You could use PyCharm, you could use VS Code. There's a lot of environment IDEs you could use and all that. It's not really a problem. Now, in fact, sometimes I don't even like. Sometimes especially when I teach people, we just use Sublime Text, or sometimes we even in the olden days we used to use Notepad. Because why? The reason was this: is just to make sure that it's initially difficult, and you now use all these tools, especially those ones that have coding assistants, to make life simpler for you. But these days I can tell, okay, use them. But so it's not really a problem. The exam just stipulates PyCharm because I think that's where they plug in the exam into. But Google Colab is a good resource. It's not just for beginners. I still use it till date. It's not because it's a bad tool. I still use it to do stuff. Maybe quickly, I just want to hack out something quickly. We do it in there, running step by step. But many of the other IDs now, they already have like the kind of Colab, the Jupyter Notebook kind of setup now within them, so you can do all that within them as well. I don't even use PyCharm now, to be honest with you, but I have a lot of friends that use PyCharm. It's fine, so it's not a problem. There are alternatives to most of all these things. But again, notebooks, you can't put them into production. I think Pablo has already put that there.
Yes.
You can't put them into production, but what they are really good for, if you want to build a prototype, maybe sometimes you want to show someone, maybe like you want to show someone something you're doing, and you're not going to show them your code, especially when you're in a company. You can easily build with tools like Gradio. Just bring up something quickly. They can see it. Say, for example, you want to do image classification. They can take a picture on Gradio. They can classify it. Oh, it makes sense to the non-technical team. Or you can build with Streamlit. Those are very simple prototyping tools that can just help you to get your idea across. And I will not lie to you, I've actually raised monies on a project using just Streamlit, because they are able to understand, unlike when I'm explaining without showing them something, So that's some of the quick hacks you can put together. But in production, just know that the Jupyter notebooks are not really your best. They're not really your go-to tools. That I can tell you immediately.
Okay. Then I also want to ask, the TensorFlow exam will be mandatory for us at the end of the 6 months. Will it be mandatory for us at the end of the 6 months?
I'll leave that to Zoom It Africa.
Is that to Wally or to Zoom It?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let me just take it anyways, just to joke with you. Look, you're not compelled to take any exams. You can study. You can either use my book or go through the curriculum easily for your learning purpose. But you see, just like anything in life, if you've done the whole journey, why not just take the exam? Do you understand? To just at least certify you're good at it. If that's your question.
No, I believe in answering and going for the exam. I'm saying that because I saw 6 months there and it was 6 months. So I wanted to know, is it part of our challenge course?
No. It's just an estimated time by TensorFlow that in 6 months you should be ready for the exams. But sometimes people get ready in less, and sometimes others get ready maybe in 8 months, a year, depending on where you are as a person. Do you have any experience already with building machine learning models? Do you have any idea at all around maybe programming? So all these factors come into play. But again, the choice is always yours when you take the exam.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Golden, to add to it, we also want to encourage our learners to take it because, like Wally said at the introduction, we could hand you a certificate, but many people don't really value so much of certificates from individual companies. They want something that holds more water, and that's why we want our students to have certificate examination, and that's why we also have Wale on as an AI patron to provide some of those assistance. His book, we can get his book, and to help us to be prepared for the examination. There are also tips that he will also share with us later when we start getting prepared to take the examination in terms of community, in terms of bonuses and the likes. So those ones are still further ahead. We just need to take it step by step.
Okay, thank you so much.
Just to add to what you said, Jonathan, the exam now, it costs $100, which I didn't mention before. But the good part of it is, you can apply for a stipend that lets you pay $50 for the exam, and you most likely get it. If you write, and we can always show you how to be able to ask for the $50. It's very easy. You would even find some of the examples on the website. They tell you how to do it, and that makes it even better. Another real good use case of why I think Pablo always emphasizes this is when you have this certificate, it already, you might not understand this now, it already takes away that burden of when you look at job applications, they tell you you must know either TensorFlow or PyTorch many times, and maybe perhaps JAX nowadays, but TensorFlow is always very important. They tell you must know TensorFlow or PyTorch. Now, you don't have to start discussing with the HR maybe or the recruitment team so early about, are you sure you could do this? You already have an evidence to prove that you can. And that's a good way because, for example, I want to hire someone quickly. It happens all the time with startups. For the bigger companies, they take maybe 6 months because they have the luxury of time to hire people. They can do the first interview, second interview, third interview. But with startups, they hire fast. You want to, quickly, prune the number of people that have applied. The first thing you probably do is look at who can you see that is already there. When you see someone who already has a certificate, you know that they can build with TensorFlow. That is already an edge. So when you don't have much time, you can easily trim down the number of applicants by seeing that this person has taken an exam that certifies them, a hands-on exam that requires them to build models, and they've already passed it. So that's already a plus for them. And I think Pablo has added, also you can join the user, this user group, for networking, because between myself and Pablo, there's a lot of internship opportunities that would open up. I work with a good number of startups, that are building things with AI. And that's where the massive opportunity lies. Working with Zoom It Africa now, we are looking at extending some of these opportunities through Zoom It Africa that is doing a lot in terms of educating people in Nigeria and across the African continent. So you see a lot of internships that lets you practicalize what you've learned and what you've taken the exam on. And that's even a plus, a cherry on the cake,
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I'm really honored. Thank you. You've answered all the questions, even the one I wanted to ask about the cost of the exam.
No
But
worries.
as my boss said, we'll get there when we get there, step by
Yeah.
step. Thank you, sir. I'm honored.
I like what Pablo just mentioned now, and that's entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
You know, we don't have to wait for the rain to fall. We can be rainmakers, and that's if you've noticed the structure of our learning program, you notice there's always projects to work on. You're working together as a team. It's to enable the team to start building projects together. Many of you also had your motivation why you want to learn, and some people mentioned that they would like to build some solution in their domain. I think saw something like that in the medical field as well. Talked about building something in the medical field to further his degree, his masters. So we have the motivation. We're looking through it and seeing how we can structure projects to suit some of your motivation, so that at the end you don't have to wait for the rain to fall. We can be rainmakers, and nothing stops us from building solutions that people use in the market. So
I think you should hold Pablo for that. He can help you with that. He's the guy to help you.
definitely.
So, but on a much serious note, I'll tell you, when I used to have a mentor back in the day, and one thing he told me, then I had done so many courses, you could get into this drive of tutorial hell, where you have done so many tutorials, you've watched all the videos by all the leading AI tutors in the world, but you're still not building anything. The truth is, my mentor said, look, it's enough of tutorials. Build something. And guess what? The first thing I built is now my startup. That's how it is. You just need to come out of that shell of doubting yourself, of not believing in yourself, and do something. It doesn't hurt. You would learn. You would learn in the process. And to be honest with you, if I look at Nigeria, for example, and I tell you that there are so many solutions you can build with AI and ML. I know the first thing everyone will throw at me is, where is the data? Not everything requires data locally, but you can customize your solution to match your local environment. Your solution has to be granular. It has to match that environment. So that's what I really tell people. Yeah, someone asks, where can I buy your book? You can get my book on Amazon, I think. Yeah, you should be on a couple of other websites, or check on Packet. Packet is my publishers. They also have the book, but I think Amazon is the easiest place most people buy these books. You can buy the ebook, or you can buy the physical copy and it ships to you. Amazon sorts everything out. So that's just some of the ideas, I think. And you should also look at entrepreneurship, because the African market is virgin, and if you go first and you go strong and you have a strong product, you might be able to build something. And the advantage is, you're already with Zoomit Africa. You can get a lot of advice from, Jonathan, from myself, and also Pablo, and a few other people that I think Pablo has some plans of even bringing some other people to, occasionally speak with us and see how it can help to be able to extend and grow these communities as well. So there's a lot happening. You just need to key into it and ensure that you're making the most. Don't just think about, I want to get a job. Expand your mind into, how can I use this to solve problems around me? By solving people's problems, then they can solve your problem, which is probably to pay you money for your product. And that's how entrepreneurs are. For example, Jonathan is going to probably expand to cater for a lot of AI engineers, and that's where you guys can also begin to think like that. You learn from him, begin to build applications, and you'll be surprised. You'll be very surprised what happens. So if you don't try, you would never know.
Okay, Wally, just someone has already done Oraji. Permit me to use that word. So Pablo has already dropped the link to the book Unpacked, and Pablo has already hinted that he's looking at working some partnerships to help us to get learning materials, enough of it during the course of the program. And like we've said, we're building a community. We're not leaving any of the people here. After we finish the program, we still want to remain in the community and build solutions together.
Don't worry, as an incentive, I would also pay for maybe one or two persons their exams. You just identify your best students and tell me, you'll pay for them to take the exam. And we might also, if they're very good, we probably give them an internship. I should be able to do that. And Pablo can also help. So don't worry. I can tell you that a lot of opportunities will be extended to you. You don't have to leave Nigeria to get those opportunities, I can tell you.
Definitely, that's great. Thank you very much for that. We put in our pockets and take it to the bank as well.
If you're not in Nigeria, wherever you are on the African continent or outside, it's still also extended to you. So when I say Nigeria, by default, I mean Nigeria and every other continent. Apologies, just in case.
We have people from different countries. I think you mentioned Namibia. Someone from Namibia is here. Someone from South Africa. People from South Africa. People from Ghana. People from Kenya. So we have a lot of African countries in our community. So
I'm always happy to see my Ghanaian friends, because especially now that they are struggling in the nation.
Stop it, please.
I just like to see their faces when they're struggling.
Oh, I think okay. All right, Pablo, does Pablo want to share any other thing? Wale, are you done with your presentation? Any other questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free. If you don't, Pablo can as well answer questions. It's a relaxed setting. Look, there are no bad questions. The mistake you would make is to have people who have these experiences and not ask any questions at all. That's where I think the mistakes are, because you would go on Twitter now and see a lot of influencers write a lot of strange things, and you take them as gospel truth. You have Pablo here with a lot of experience, myself with some experience as well, and it will be good you ask some of those questions, some of the things that people tell you. When I see some things on Twitter or LinkedIn, YouTube, I just cringe because they're not true. I see people tell you need to master some strange things to become this or that. They're not really true. So you need to ask this kind of questions so that you can actually dig deep into what you necessarily need to know to be able to get into this field, and you realize that it might not really be as bad as you were thinking initially. Yeah. I'm not saying it's easy or it's just a walk in the park, but it's something that you can do, and you just need to align yourself with people who are able to guide you, who are in the industry. Because sometimes what you see is, I see that a lot of influencers are online with lots of followers, but ask them, have they built any solution? Have they worked in any companies? Have they done any project? Have they deployed? Have they put any model into production? And you might find out that in many cases, they have not. Like my friend used to tell me, how can you, can someone who is not a millionaire teach you how to become a millionaire? I don't know if that's true or it's not true, but that was his question. I said, it's not possible. If you don't know how to make money, you can't teach anybody how to make money, So that's a different thing anyways. So that's it from me. If you have any questions, feel free, ask.
Okay. Daniel has a question on the chat.
I cannot see advice do you give someone that's just coming into the field? Should they focus on AI, the domain, or generic knowledge of machine learning? Yeah, you necessarily have to learn machine learning. We kind of, these days, we kind of switch through these concepts, the AI, ML. Sometimes the reason why we use them in very general settings, especially when people are just in the beginner phases, because it's easy to understand when you say, okay, AI, okay, they're going to build ML models, and it's simpler. But at the end of the day, what I would tell you is you need to learn fundamentals of machine learning. If you're really going to build ML models and put them into production, you will learn from the fundamentals. Just build step by step. Just do that 1% every day. It's so beautiful when you're consistent. That consistency is what puts a lot of people ahead of others, and not giving up. It's hard sometimes, because you might face a lot of rejections, especially when you're starting out. But with the help of communities like this, where you have that the barrier to entry is lowered a bit for you. You have access to do internships, you have access to work on projects, then it makes it easier. Because the truth is, for me, I would rather hire someone who shows me one project and can tell me they've worked with a team, because that's exactly what they're going to do when they work for me. They're going to work with a team, they're going to build models, they're going to write documentation, they're going to explain this to other non-technical people and all that. So that's exactly what you're going to do. So it's easy for me to hire you when you're good, and the only difference is you've not got a paying job. That's the only difference. And it's easy for me to negotiate a good deal for my company as well, because I'm not saying that we're going to cheat you, but you cannot expect me to pay a beginner and someone who has done 2 to 3 years experience, in a company. They're different. They might be able to do the same thing, but of course you have experience. We have to factor that into your pay. So it's easy to hire Imagine and Rising Stars that way. Aspirant software engineer, but I'm building applications with AI. How do you know you should integrate AI into your application, or the demand is this? Good question. That's why you should read my book. This question was resolved in chapter 1. When should you use AI to build? Not all problems are AI-based problems. You shouldn't use AI when you could just use a very simple solution, rule-based solutions. There's so many other ideas that you could use, but it's not everything that is an AI-based solution. The need must always exist. You find out these days in companies, in fact, I did an interview with a company and they told me they want to build with a particular model. In fact, the guy wrote out the model and wanted to build out with, and I was like, why do you want to build a model? Tell me what exactly is the problem you're trying to solve. ML has the ML lifecycle you have to follow. So when you look at the problem, the first thing you need to understand is what is the problem. You need to understand and identify, is this problem an ML problem or not even an ML problem? That's the first thing before you start building. But you find out a lot of people are ready to jump on, I read about XGBoost, let me try it out. That's not how to build. So these are the things, that the foundation that you need, knowing what to do and when to do it, the way to think as an ML engineer. Because when you see a problem, the first thing is to understand what exactly is this problem. Then when you become a leader, one of the things you're in leadership position in your company, like Pablo will tell you, you need to begin to think about how do you tie the business objectives with your ML objectives. Do they go hand in hand? Are you able? Is this solution going to be able to yield enough monies that to cater for the whole project? Sometimes you have a bill on your project, maybe your project is going to cost about $250,000. Will the company be able to generate that kind of money at the end of the day after building this project? If they're going to make 350, then there's no point. Because by the time you look at the 250 you're spending on the project, plus some of the miscellaneous that will probably pop up, and projects don't necessarily go according to the exact estimate. It might be over, and many times it's over. Is it really worth it for the company to invest in that kind of project? So that's what you deal with when you get to much higher levels. But now your problem is more of knowing how to build, knowing how to ship products. Where you become maybe head of your team, then you can start thinking about, can you justify this to management? That's the beauty of how things will change over time. But some of my friends don't like those kind of positions. I've seen my friends who have resigned because they were offered leadership positions. It's counterintuitive, but it happens. And they rather go to another company and just write out code. They don't want to have anything to do with discussing ROI or anything like that. It annoys them. So that's okay. So that's I think you did some, okay, you said generative AI courses. They're good courses because you learn from them, but don't stop at learning. Try to use them, apply them to build something, and don't just build chatbots. I see chatbots all the time. It gives me migraine now when I say chatbot. Oh my goodness, another chatbot is out there. Build something real. Like, a chatbot is part of the puzzle. It's not everything. So try and make it a real application that works. Try and make it something that people would want to pay for, people will want to use, because a chatbot is just a chatbot.
Okay, I think that question is for Sumit from Chibuzo.
Okay, I'll leave that to you.
Okay, Chibuzo, if you look through at least the first week, the curriculum for this first week, or the course for this first week, you notice is bordering around introduction to Python. So the first few weeks will be introduction to Python. Other few weeks will be introduction to Python libraries like NumPy. So definitely it's for people who are starting as well. And if you remember, Wally mentioned Tensorflow has said first 1 to 6 months you should be ready to take the exam. So if you are really serious about learning, and you are really, really serious actually, if you spend time, you should be able to meet up with that 6 months to understand the field.
Yeah.
So you're not saying because you're becoming a professional then, or you're understanding the field. You continue learning. Wally still learns. Pablo still learns. Everyone still learns. Like, just for at least you have a step. You have a head start.
There's always a paradigm shift in this field. So if you are looking for a field where you just learn, I will never read again, then you're in the wrong place. Because every day, in fact, I'm telling you, every week I read at least not less than 5 to 10 papers every week. Till now, I still do it. What I do is when I find a paper, I'm on the train. I read them on the train, or when I'm going back home or going somewhere. So I don't just waste all those times. Now, another thing I do to keep up is you need to follow it's nice to follow some of the people who are working in the industry as well, especially those who have spent some time. They write, especially those guys who are writing about solutions or problems or developments in the field. It's good to keep abreast with what's happening. And there's always that shift. For example, now when you had these transformer models come out, it's a complete game changer. It's different from the kind of NLP solutions people were building pre-transformers. Now you have things like LLMs and LLM ops. Those are now topics that were not there in the last. When I see somebody posted a job and said you need to have 5 years of LLM experience, I'm like, are you joking? This model just came out. Like, in fact, it's preposterous to come up with such an idea, because it shows you that the person's a joker. So that's why you can't just say, I know everything in this field and stop. You must learn. But in my approach, I will tell you one trick that you can use. It might work for you, it might not work. It's just an idea. What I did starting out was I focused on a small section, which was more, I learned the basics, NLP, I learned about everything, TensorFlow exam. Then I zoomed into NLP. and focused on it. I knew NLP a lot, that I could speak with a lot of key players, about NLP solutions and all that. Because that way, it was easy for me to focus on that small area. Guess what? I'll tell you this. I don't know. When I was working, a company in the US that wanted to use ML to build. I'm seeing the questions. I will take some of them. I'll leave some to Pablo. So I saw a company in the US that wanted to build an ML solution, and they said they wanted me to build in computer vision. So what I did, I told them, look, I'm an NLP engineer by practice, and if you want me to build the computer vision, then they have to give me some time. They were like, yes, we're happy to give you the time. So because people trust you in one thing, they might be able to give you opportunities to evolve on something else. So that's another part. But let me quickly look at some of the questions that are here so that we can look at them. What I told my friend in tech, no end to learning. Okay, yeah, that's valid. Pablo mentioned ML ops. Do I really need to be good at building ML models, or is there a career prospect for someone in production side as well? Well, some people work as ML ops engineers, but the truth is, I don't see how you're going to become an ML ops engineer without learning ML. So ML ops, in fact, most ML engineers have to learn ML ops eventually to be able to earn a good salary. In fact, these days now, it's even more annoying where everyone is now an AI specialist on Twitter. So I don't even go into that debate anymore. Once you say that, that's fine. I agree with you. So it's okay. I don't even want to be dragged into any of those kind of debates. But you have to take it step by step. ML ops is very good, but first things first, start small. Understand the fundamentals, build models, build solutions. That way, then learn how do I move from these solutions in my notebook to production. So when you get there, you'll be very happy. You can now start showing people, wow, this is it. But again, I think the ML community has made it easy for us to be able to build some quick prototypes. You can show with those kind of simple tools, Gradio, Flask, and all that. So that's it. Pablo is going for another meeting now. I would need to run as well, but I can give you guys another 5-10 minutes because I have a meeting too. But we would definitely have to still catch up on many things. If you have questions, even after we drop off, please put them together. I'm sure Jonathan is my guy. He would always send them to me, and I would as well still get answers to you guys. And Pablo, we should make use of Pablo. I appeal to you guys. Maybe you can take one or two other questions if anybody has them.
Okay. Someone asked you a question. Says, would you describe a day in your life, like life with ML engineer?
I don't want to tell you this so that you not take me on seriously. To be honest with you, the way it works is this, you're not going to be busy all the time doing it, depending on the company you work for. Like I work mainly in startups. In startups, especially if you work for a research lab, like the first company I work in, is very intense. Like the amount of work is very intense. When companies are building ML solutions directly, that's what their product is ML-based solutions. Then it's very intense. But if you work for a company that uses ML to drive their process, then it's not as stressful as a research lab. But now, see, the difference is research labs, in many instances, they pay very well. They pay because the job is intense and the teams are small. But again, it's not always the case. Sometimes you find yourself in other companies that do pay very well, depending on how much you've raised, depending on how you're able to negotiate. So there are a lot of factors that come into play. But right now, what I do mainly, because I lead teams, I build products too as well, but I do less of the building and more of the directing now. So it's easier for me to, when I look at a problem in many cases, and that's what experience does, is when you start out, you might have to think through every single thing, but at the later stage, what happens is by the moment you go to a company, you know probably 50% of what to do already. So because you don't know what to do, it makes it easier. So sometimes you don't have to be stressed out all day. So sometimes, in fact, I have time to chat. And my wife is like, "Are you really working?" So that's how it is, because you know what to do. So many times you're able to sort out the problems maybe quicker than a lot of people, and that's where experience comes into play. Like they tell you, Usain Bolt can run maybe in 9 seconds, and they pay him millions of dollars, but it has taken years to get to that point. So sometimes when we solve a problem for a company, they're like, why did we have to pay so much for just you coming to solve it in 2 days or in 3 days? But that's where experience comes into play. And they come. In fact, I worked for a company on a project one, and they said, why did I not think about this? And I'm like, that's what you pay for. You pay for experience. The experience is able to let the person know that this is how to solve the problem. So those are some of the things that's why it's different. It depends on the stage you are in your career. The early stages, you will spend a lot of time monitoring, a lot of time building. When you become a senior, probably you're just looking at more how to bring in the best people into your team, assembling the right kind of teams, building to make sure that you're meeting up with the business objectives, those kind of high-level decisions, and also you're jumping into projects when your team is struggling. You know what to do. You're able to direct those who can code how to think about the problem in the way that it solves the business problem. So that's something that you do at a higher level. But when you start out, enjoy the process, enjoy the ride. That's what I'll tell you. Any other questions? One more before I run.
Yeah, there's one more question.
Okay, just
I
let
also
me.
have a question.
Okay, what's the question?
Please, what's the learning curve for ML like? And do I need to know a lot of maths like linear algebra?
Well, you need to know some maths, but I'll leave that to Zoomit Africa. I think Zoomit Africa has a program. You should speak to them. They would work out something that would help you to get in quickly. I think what TensorFlow really promotes is you learning how to build fast, because when you build, you see what you've solved, then it interests you to learn every other thing that you need. So you can always fill up the gaps. Don't let anything people say, oh, until you do this, you can't do this. It's not really true. There are different parts. Like a market, there are many ways you can get in, but the fundamentals are key. You must understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and when to do what. They're very important. So that's where I would take a pause. It's 6:05. I need to jump into another meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Wally, for the time. We really appreciate your time, your insights, and everything. And some more is coming from the stable of Wally and Ridley, and we'll keep you updated. And
okay.
Little spoiler alert: Pablo is likely going to host the webinar for March.
Okay.
He said he likely want to host that for March.
Thank you, guys.
So thank you very much. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. This